Let's open up the OG mailbag. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovias. We are inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. We're brought to you by Copiers Plus every day. Shout them out. Check them out. Copiers-plus.com. But on Fridays, when we open up the mailbag, it is brought to you by our friends at the Butcher's Market, Giglio's home for all things salmon.
Okay, so I got a bunch of salmon the other day. Those steak tips though, they're marinated in a red wine and with blue cheese.
Some people don't like blue cheese.
I
like blue cheese.
I know, but the red wine cuts the blue cheese.
Oh,
so it's more of just like that creamy goodness, but on a steak, and it's the signature steak tips. Amazing.
Look, all I know is that I might go to the Butcher's Market this weekend to load up on all the salmon, all the tuna, just to kind of purify myself after yesterday's Simply Crepes extravaganza.
That was amazing.
Goodness gracious.
It's one of our better days. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, well, if that's what summer protocols are all about, hit me up.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we got some response to that. You know how the mailbag works. The first part, it's free. And then we get into the paid portion. You want the paid portion? You want to get my Nintendo Switch 2 review?
Oh, did you get yours?
Oh, there's a whole story to go along with that. You want my baseball in the triangle takes?
This is quite an episode we've got ourselves walked into.
You want to find out about how I felt super, super old when one of our listeners forwarded me a Reddit about how the Utes don't understand how we got around without GPS?
Oh boy.
That's all on the paid side
and
more.
Okay.
So go to ogtrianglemedia.com to go be part of OG fans and get the full mailbag episode.
Here's the mail, it never fails. Makes me want to whack my tail. When it comes, what a whale.
All right, let's go to the first reaction we got from yesterday, because apparently the Simply Crepes episode was up there. As one listener pointed out, it was up there with the unhinged nature of on-location pods like Nature's Relief. I had one listener say they were inspired to go to Simply Crepes, took the family because, and I quote, Giglio was going through it with those beignets.
Oh, man. Well, at first it was the raspberry compote, and then I'm like, wait a second. There's like some sort of Valinda and lemon concoction over here that is delicious.
So the fact that you were going through it made me like, you know what? I'm going to take my family to go check this out.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
This comes to us from a 920.
Thursday show, the OG podcast, Joe and Joe, sharing vodka martinis with espresso and sharing beignets. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this is why this is the champagne of podcasts. Makes me come back every single time to see what y'all doing next. Have a good one.
That was Kelly. Thank you, Kelly.
But not everybody was a fan.
Uh-oh.
Not everybody was a fan of this.
I had an idea.
You've got mail.
We had somebody leave a comment on YouTube saying, this is from Randy.
Say as a real person?
As a real person, Randy, you've been doing radio for how long and find it appropriate to eat on a microphone? What the fuck?
Ooh.
Have some basic respect for your listeners and get that shit out of my ear. As I said on the podcast, some people have an aversion to that. I am one of those people. But what are you going to do when they keep bringing us food? Not eat it?
It would be rude not to eat it.
And also, like I said,
it's also Randy. First of all, lighten up. Second of all, it's not radio. Like, look around you. What was your first clue that we're not on radio anymore? Maybe that we weren't on your radio anymore. Oh, shit, Randy. Good call.
You know my argument. Everything's radio if you really think about it.
It's a show. It's a show.
From Kevin, please have James on more often to explain to geriatric millennials like we're 5 that the Utes are what the Utes are up to. What's Ice House? I'm dead. I'm not. James got me when I said Ice House. He's like, what's that? I'm like, wait,
it didn't have a Zima comeback. He knows what Zima is because remember, Zima had a little bit of a comeback. So if something has a comeback, he knows what it is.
I see.
But if it just goes away and stays away, he doesn't know.
I see. It's funny. It's because, I know James is 20. I get that, but I still think of James as a little kid. So as I'm having a conversation with James, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm having a conversation with a grown ass adult. So you know what? I should talk to James like a grown ass adult.
There you go.
So yeah. Now, as far as Jackson's concerned, hey man, he's going to be 35 and I'm still going to think of him as the kid who's crying because Santa's there.
Yeah. Those might follow him for a minute.
Forever. Is Jackson still scared of Santa? He's not going to cry next time he sees Santa this year, right?
I think he's moved on, but yeah, that was a tough stretch, man.
It's a full
4 years.
For those who don't know, this is when Joe and I we get into the more personal side of things. Was that like a 4 or 5 year stretch where Jess would post a photo?
Yeah, it was 4 years.
And Jackson was in tears.
He was Florida baseball coach, unhinged.
Don't get me anywhere near that bearded man. Just meltdown.
Yes.
I looked forward to those photos. I really did. They were fantastic photos. They're going to follow him forever, for sure. For sure. All right, next up, as I mentioned, let's go back to the sports phone, shall we?
Hey guys, I'm thinking about your talk lately about triangle good. In my mind, I know what you mean, and I think your listeners too know what that means. But I think for this exercise, I think we need to put a specific definition on it. So if you guys could come up specifically with what triangle good means, I think that would be very helpful to all of us. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
Appreciate that call. Some quick context here because we are about to enter true summer off-season protocols when we get into the brief history of triangle good, the last 25 years of triangle good. Wednesday will be our first edition of this.
Yes.
Where we will unveil the Mount Rushmore of triangle good quarterbacks of the last 25 years.
I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited about this too. We've actually
We've
had some people calling the sports phone about this, and we will air your opinions on this on Wednesday through our brief history of triangle good. So call the sports phone with your Mount Rushmore of triangle good QBs. College only, by the way.
Got a little breaking news for you too.
Yeah.
We're title sponsor for the brief history of
we do?
Good. We do.
Okay.
Our friends at Color Graphic will be the official sponsor of Triangle Good. Even better, Glenn, a little bit of a tortured state fan.
Oh, this is perfect for him.
Can join us on Wednesday and maybe add his 2 cents and also how they can help your particular business, because the OG light beer display doesn't happen. These pictures don't happen. The downtown banners don't happen without Color Graphic. If your automobile needs to be wrapped to promote your business, they can handle that too.
Is it time to wrap the pilot?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Maybe.
Soon enough.
Another note about the triangle, brief history of triangle good. A quarterback that might be on the Mount Rushmore of triangle good QBs will be joining us.
I love that.
On Wednesday.
I'll try to do this as succinctly as possible.
Yeah, please
you ready?
Please do.
2013, and man, I'm really not ready to fight with you about Duke, but just give me 5 seconds here, please.
Yeah.
2013, Duke wins the Coastal Division, right? And oh my God, what a great story. Well, that year, Duke was the definition of triangle good. They were good enough to win 10 games. They were good enough to win the Coastal Division, but not good enough to beat Florida State, the national champions. No shame in not being good enough to beat the national champions.
I honestly thought they hung with Florida State as best they could in Charlotte.
Yeah. They still lost by a shit ton of points. But you know what? That's what Florida State was that year. So there is national, elite, national, elite, blue blood, all those things. Those are all like different levels. But being good enough to win 10 games and go to a decent bowl, or back in the day, win the division, that's triangle good. That Duke team is the definition of triangle good.
So you don't want to argue about Duke?
I do not.
Too bad. Because people had takes.
Oh boy.
Based on our brief conversation about that. This is a YouTube comment. Ovius has way more of a pulse on what Duke fans feel about losing to UNC. We've moved on. State loss isn't even in the same universe. State fans care way more about that win than Duke thinks about that loss. No one thinks about it.
You have new mail.
From Brian, Giglio's hate of Duke makes him write fan fiction about what goes through Shire's and Duke's fans' heads? To which Ramar responded, Giglio's fantasies are a bit more ... unconventional. However, not everybody is on my side when it comes to this existential conversation about Duke basketball over the last couple of years. Oh, no. Let's go to the sports phone to a 919.
Hey guys, this is Sam from Raleigh. Just responding from something I heard on today's podcast. Really was bothered by what Joe O said about Duke basketball fans feeling okay with what happened in the Final Four loss to Carolina a few years ago. Both things can be true. I fully believe, as a Duke basketball fan since birth, that Duke basketball is in a significantly better place than Carolina basketball is currently. However, the loss to Carolina in the Final Four bothers me every single day to this day. I said to myself the week before that Final Four game where Duke lost to Carolina that if Duke lost, I was not going to be mentally well until Duke won a national championship. That has played out until today. It didn't matter that we beat Carolina by 45 in Cameron Indoor. It didn't matter that we stomped on their throat at the Dean Dome this year with Cooper Flagg in the second half. It didn't matter that we made the Final Four and Carolina looked like NC State arguing for, oh, should we make the bubble? Oh my goodness, we should be an at-large team at Dayton. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to play South Carolina in an at-large game. It doesn't matter. Until Duke basketball wins a national championship, I will never be over that Final Four loss. And I promise you, the majority of Duke fans feel this way, and I promise you, there is a piece of John Shire that also feels this way. I fully believe that Duke basketball is on a path to win a national championship before Carolina. We just lost our best chance in the Final Four to Houston. I hate that I'm even talking about college basketball right now because I haven't been able to sleep well since the second half of the Houston game. But Joe Ovius, it makes me upset for you to think that you know how Duke basketball fans feel, because that loss to Carolina significantly changed my life and significantly changed the lives of thousands of Duke fans until we are able to win a national championship. Thank you.
I love that call. I absolutely love that call. We also got this follow-up.
You've got mail.
This came to us from Sid. So it existentially bothers John Shire that he lost to Houston in the Final Four, but Hubert and UNC fans are good with the Final Four collapse against Kansas. You're a UNC homer, Giglio. Just own it. Then I got another comment from Hill. Damn, Ovius, what are you smoking? The players in Shire might be somewhat unbothered because they're ingrained in the here and now of winning each season, but the fan base is not and never will be unbothered by what happened in 2022. It's unprecedented and irreplaceable in this rivalry, and it may never be topped. It ruined the whole night and the season of pageantry that ESPN pushed for K, and it goes on and on and on and on. So this fired people up, which good. That's the point. We're having conversations here.
A lot of things can be true.
Yes, they can.
A lot of things can be true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the part where you're right. I think Duke has moved on. Now, at the very beginning of this, I never said it was the Carolina loss or the twin Carolina losses.
Yeah.
It's the entire package.
Yeah.
Okay. So fine. If you want to divorce John from K, take out the Carolina loss. I will find this interview that Shire did with Jay Billis, where he specifically mentions losing to NC State in the to reach the Final Four.
Yeah, in the Elite Eight, right.
John Shire, like us, has been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So John Shire's opinion of NC State is that they are dog shit.
Yes.
And by losing to them, well, that ipso facto, you are dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So just let me find the fucking clip, people. All right? Now, take NC State out of it. Fine. You want to sit here and say NC State doesn't matter. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
The Houston loss this year with Cooper Flagg hurts.
Sure.
It does. Okay? So let's get to the part where everything can be right and everyone can be right. I think Duke has moved on under John Shire in a way that has been productive, and it has been exemplary in the one and done NIL transfer portal world. I like to say college basketball is a year-to-year proposition. Duke has practiced that theory since 2011. They've lived it. They know it. They know what college basketball is better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And that part, I agree that they have moved on. They know how to move on. They know how to compartmentalize. They know how to go from year to year. They get to enjoy the recruiting cycle where they almost always win the recruiting war.
Sure.
Right? Up until AJ DeBanza this year, they almost always win the recruiting war. They don't recruit players, they pick them. Okay? That's an unbelievable position of power to be in.
Yeah.
Especially in this era. Okay? So I agree with that. But I do not agree with that even if you compartmentalize Shire and take out the end, which you and I said in real time, I said the very next day, this is the best thing to happen to John Shire.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a very good thing for him.
Yeah, you and I agree on what it means for Shire. Even if you compartmentalize K and give K his losses,
as a Duke fan, that you say, fine, the K era is over. I hope people can go back and think of the K era for all of the success that it was,
of course,
and not the end.
Yeah,
we're still working on that. Okay, people are still working on that at large. Okay,
yeah,
and I hope Duke fans look at John and look at the success that he's had, 2 ACC titles and a trip to the Final Four, and say, John, and winning all those recruiting battles and being number one and being the top program in college basketball. I hope they look at that and say, look at all of our success. But, as I like to tell the parents back when I'm coaching rec league basketball, I didn't turn the scoreboard on. Okay. But the scoreboard's on. We are keeping track, and we are going to try to win.
Yeah.
And when we lose, it hurts.
Yeah.
When we win, we celebrate it. Okay. The losses that Duke has suffered, even under John Shire, hurt and wound not only the competitor, but in my imaginary scenario of being in a bar, being at your friend's house, being at a barbecue, being at wherever you get together with your friends, especially in this area. If there's 10 people in a room, there's going to be 6 Carolina fans, there's going to be 3 State fans, and there's going to be 1 Duke fan. And you're all going to get together, and you're all going to talk, and you're all going to have your points. For 40 years, NC State fans didn't have a single thing to talk about. Not one.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Duke has to be the one that eats the shit sandwich at that gathering, because not only did you lose to Carolina, but you lost to State. Now, but you have your own talking points as a Duke fan. All the ones that I just laid out. You're the number 1 program in college basketball, even without a national title since 2015. That's what makes the area go.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming I know what Duke. I'm not sitting here telling you you've locked yourself in a basement as a Duke fan because you lost to Mike Krzyzewski lost his final game. No, but what I am saying to you is those subsequent losses do matter, and they do count.
Okay.
And there is an emotional investment. That's where I think sometimes there's a financial and an emotional investment. That's always been your point, though. But you were dismissing the loss to Houston as almost like no one.
No.
Like, I know people who went and spent money and went to San Antonio and were not happy.
That's great. That's fantastic that you know those people. And just like the caller who's still upset about what happened to UNC, I'm not dismissing that. And I hope by now
you were in the original comments.
No, I wasn't. Here's what I was doing.
Okay.
Here's what I was doing on multiple fronts. Okay. We can establish that competitors are driven by losses.
Yes. Everyone we've ever talked to has told us that.
There's a difference between getting driven by a loss and then dwelling on a loss. You either are driven by it and you want to make sure to go quote Coach K, here's to that never happening again.
Right.
Okay.
No, here's to always remember.
Here's to always remembering.
Correct.
Because that's what's going to drive you. I think there's a clear distinction with that. What I push back on and what I think is fucking stupid is that it ended.
Oh, I never said that.
But that's the general attitude.
Right.
Maybe not from you, but the general attitude is for a lot of Carolina fans, and we just did this back in January with Bomani.
Sure.
Where the entire night was a celebration about how this shit's over. Here's the thing. It ain't.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, then why is everybody so fucking mad about UNC right now?
UNC fans.
UNC fans.
The UNC fans.
If it's over,
UNC fans are directly upset at the consistent success that Duke has had. Yes.
Not they're mad about that. They're mad about being kind of not discussed in the same way that Duke. They're mad. But if it's over, then why are you mad? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Now, this is where you and I agree. This is what makes the area fascinating. This is what makes the area unique. This is why it's June 6th, and most of the calls we got for the mailbag were related to basketball. That's why in 2024, the greatest thing that ever could have happened to NC State was getting there, not because of Kevin Keats, not because grown men were crying for the first time since 1987 or any of that kind of stuff. It recalibrated everybody at NC State go, you know what? This is what we give a shit about. The same thing's going to happen to Carolina with Bill Belichick. Oh, look at that. We gave a bunch of money to football again, and what are we getting in return? That's right. We're a freaking basketball school. That's what makes us feel something. And as much as this area changes, and it's changed a lot, there's one truism. Basketball makes you feel something that football can't. So that's why we're here. So I want to level that out as a base, that I'm not being cavalier, that I'm not being nonchalant. It's what I look at what's happened with Duke is that it didn't stop.
Oh, no. They kept going.
They kept going.
And they'll keep going from this loss, by the way.
This is what gets me kind of upset. You know, yesterday before we got going, you said I cosplayed as a Duke fan. I'm not cosplaying as a Duke fan. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, no, you can't stand Duke.
That's fine.
And that's fine.
I'm transparent about that.
Right. And be transparent about it, but then don't accuse me of cosplaying as a Duke fan.
Well,
because what I'm getting at here is that I'm looking at the mentality that I'm witnessing in real time. They're going forward. Whereas you and a lot of other people, especially when it comes to NC State, you did something finally. It didn't end.
No.
There was next
kept
year,
going.
You know, to bust your balls a little bit. You even said it yourself this week. Man, we did a great show with Rod Brindamore and Eric Tulsky.
We did.
Great. Guess what? It didn't end. So that's what I'm getting at with Duke. And the one thing I will always commend Duke for, you can be driven by the loss. You can be bothered by the loss, but they haven't stopped. They've gone forward. And if you want to bring in the feelings of, man, how the fuck did we lose to State in the Elite Eight? It's what you do with the loss. And that's where I commend John Shire. That's what I commend Duke for going forward. And I think, again, getting back to the front of this, for a lot of people, that shit ended in 2022. It did for Coach K. But I think you and I both agree it was the best thing that could have happened for John Shire. The best thing. Because that's not on him. That's Coach K's end of the legacy.
Yeah.
You're getting started. You got your own arc to go. And again, if we believe that John Shire is the right guy and things are going in the right direction, every single one of the coaches we talk about, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, right? These Hall of Famers that we've gotten to enjoy, the ones that have just recently retired, whether it's Tony Bennett, Jim Boeheim, and the like, they all have this as part of their arc, do they not?
Oh, sure.
They all have this part of their arc.
Oh my gosh, Roy Williams.
I mean, shit. When we did the sit down with Roy, he spent more time. Roy spends more time talking about the losses than he does the wins.
I was gonna say Roy's losses just weren't at Carolina; they were at Kansas.
Yeah. Well, he's got 2016 8 at him.
Yeah, but washed it pretty quickly.
Yeah, you can do that the following year.
Yeah.
So who's to say? I mean, again, teams win on cycles also too that have nothing to do with, like, do you think Roy thought he was going to be in that cycle given everything that was going on? I mean, we talked about it with Roy, that team, that national championship team is special to him for all the reasons of what was going on with the NCAA.
The 06 team, when everyone left, they had won the next year. His real regret, which is like Cooper Flagg, which I suspect is how John Shire will ultimately be.
Likely, yeah.
Is 97 Kansas.
Yes.
He's like, damn it, that team was, you guys don't understand how good that team was. Like, and people don't remember it because you get lost in history. They didn't even get to the Final Four.
Coach
97 Kansas.
Coach K's got that one. They all got him. They all got him. They all got him.
Yep.
That's and the way I look at it.
But you have to have the other titles to go with it. That's where it becomes.
He literally just got there.
I know. I get that. I get that.
Literally just got there.
Get that.
So let's slow down a little bit, shall we? All right. Back to the OG Sports Phone, shall we? Again, you don't believe me that basketball is the thing that gets people still fired up in June, more so than anything else? Here's a 252.
What's up, guys? Just calling in to address the Ven-Allen Lubin NC State discussion. Just responding to all these Carolina fans that are freaking out. including to the guy that called in yesterday at the end of the show. What Carolina fans need to understand, I'm sorry, I'm out of shape and I'm walking here, and this is not going well. What Carolina fans need to understand is that this is a different era in Raleigh. This isn't NC State from 2 years ago. This isn't NC State from 6 years ago. This is a new era in Raleigh. I know some NC State fans have gotten delusional. You know, like this is the second coming of Jim Valvano. Like, we're going to be absolutely insane. But I'm not one of those guys. But I am very optimistic. And I think you're going to be talking about a top 25 team next year. And you've got a dynamic coach that doesn't give a crap what anybody else thinks, that is a proven winner, that is a big name coach that State didn't have to cheap out to get him. Like, we didn't get the head coach at UNC Greensboro or something to come here. Big name coach. And he's got a lot of money this year. Not the top of the conference, but a lot of money. So he's got a lot of money, and he's got that dog in him, and it's a different era in Raleigh. This is not 2 years ago NC State. This is 2025 NC State. And one way or another, some noise will be made, some fun will be had, some people in blue will be annoyed, and that's okay. That's good. Give me some wins, get me into the NCAA tournament at bid, and a bunch of ticked off Duke and Carolina fans. Go Pack, go Will Wade, Ven-Allen Lubin, baby. My favorite player of all time.
You think Ven-Allen Lubin was like thinking, man, I know what'll get the internet popping. I could go anywhere, but I know what I'm going to do to get people talking about me. People fired up with this Ven-Allen Lubin thing, man.
I thought he was on my wavelength there. He was like, I thought he was about to say, like, Carolina has had pretty good success given this era. You know, that's no different.
Different because, again, they operate on a different level. Speaking of UNC basketball, our last one in the free portion.
Hey, guys, this is Ben from Chapel Hill, and I'm a little drunk, by the way, so I was listening to y'all's podcast, and I'm wondering why the national media is so down on Carolina basketball this year. We have the 6th ranked overall recruiting class in the country coming into this next year, and we're being talked about as like being middle of the pack in the ACC by some national media outlets. I mean, State is being talked about as being a top 3 team in the ACC, and they have the 14th best class coming in. So is it Hubert? Is he the reason that we're being drug in the dirt pretty much by the national media? Is it the difference in coaches? Because if that's the case, then that just doesn't make sense, because Hubert's the only triangle coach that I know of that's currently in his position that has been to a national championship game. And I just don't understand why the national media is so down on Carolina and talking about us as a fringe tournament team, when outside of Duke in the ACC, we have the best overall recruiting class as far as combining transfers and high school recruits goes. So I really don't understand. I guess it's Hubert and his kind of lack of consistency that's causing us to be dragged down by the national media, but it really just doesn't make any sense to me how.
So the call got cut off, but I think we got the crux of what the question is. I think the answer is Hubert, but not for the reason that you think. I've spent some time thinking about this this week because of the way that Carolina's roster spend has been framed. And the only conclusion I can come down to is that Hubert doesn't play the game. And because Hubert Davis doesn't play the game, those who shape the national conversations are not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. What do you mean play the game? I mean giving access. And this is something that is true locally as it is nationally. And Joe, you can speak to this better than I can because I've never actually worked a beat when it comes to covering a team, but I'm around it enough that I can see what happens. And this always kind of caught my attention when I always found it curious when a national guy would break a story that a local guy should have had. I go, why is that? And again, this is things that you can speak to, right? But with Hubert, He doesn't do either one. He doesn't necessarily work the local media or what's left of it. And he also doesn't work the national media. And I think that's why you see it framed the way that you do. All I ask is that you pay attention to who does interviews with who. Pay attention to the Jeff Goodmans and Rob Dosters of the world and the Gary Parishes and the Matt Norlanders of how they talk about coaches. Usually the reason why they talk glowingly about coaches is because there's access that's given on a national level.
You're nice to me. I'm nice to you.
Right.
You help me. I'll help you.
So in the case of John Shire, John's not really doing a lot locally, but I know John's plugged in with the national guys. And when
Jeff Goodman broke the news about
Jeff Goodman was the one
John
who broke
Shire.
that news. When Jeff Goodman was here to watch hockey, you know what he did? Caught up with John Shire.
Yeah.
When Matt Norlander's in town, you know what he's doing? He's catching up with John Shire. Will Wade's gonna do the same thing, by the way. I mean, shit, I saw Will Wade. I logged into YouTube to upload a video the other day, and Will Wade's doing a freaking podcast with Aaron Torres, for heaven's sake. And you're looking at me like, wait, who the hell is Aaron Torres? Exactly. But Aaron Torres is a guy who's been covering college basketball for Fox for like a really long time.
Oh, okay.
He's extremely online. But again, giving access. That's Hubert's problem. Hubert's made a choice. He doesn't want to give that access. And I think that's why things are framed the way that they're framed at Carolina. And he doesn't win enough, consistently enough, to get over that stuff. It's not like Coach K was out here giving a bunch of access either, but he was winning.
I think if Hubert had been a like NBA assistant in some sort of recluse, that people would probably treat him different.
He wasn't.
But the fact that he worked at ESPN for 10 years and then came over, and I think people just kind of sort of expected, oh, here's an ESPN guy who's been on TV and promotes college basketball. He's done very little to promote even the Carolina brand. So his messaging has been poor pretty much throughout.
Yeah.
Other than the one Tracy Wolfson, it's live action out here. Tracy.
And that was in the moment.
And that was him being caught up in the moment. Yeah. I agree with the caller's original statement. I actually like the pieces that Carolina has bought in.
Same.
I get it. I get it. There's not a traditional point guard. I'll say this because we're going to talk about this a lot this year. This will be the first time I tell you this. Seth Trimble is actually the guy who was the bus driver at the end of this year. If you go back and watch those games, yes, this is part of me gambling, but when you go back and watch the games at the end of the year, wasn't RJ Davis. It was Trimble. Okay.
Yeah, we found out his importance when he was hurt.
You're going to see him in a lead guard position, not a traditional point guard position, but you're going to see him be the bus driver of that team to try to help facilitate for those bigs by going to the basket. Okay. I think the number one issue facing Carolina in 2024-25 was their lack of size. So Hubert Davis went out and made sure that they had size this year. Check mark, right? The players that they lost, they had to part with Elliot Cadeau. So I don't mind that one. Ian Jackson's probably going to bite them a little bit because he's going to have success at St. John's.
Yeah, I'm convinced
There's
that's the one.
Very little doubt
back.
about that.
Yeah.
And I think he misused Ian this year without knowing his practice habits, without knowing what he did off the court. I think given the chance to use that one again, you make Ian the bus driver instead. But here they are. They're trying to solve problems. Even to the Stojakovic point where I gave him credit and someone got mad that I gave him credit for not signing Stojakovic. Hey, man, the guy played like shit against Duke and Carolina. Okay. I get it. This league has changed. But as far as I'm concerned, if you can't perform against the traditionally two best teams in this league, I don't want you on my team.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think they've made some smart moves. I agree with the original point of the caller. I think Carolina will be in a position to make the Sweet 16 and make a run next year. That's what I think. Assuming they can block out everything, you got to make sure Caleb Wilson's in there and is the guy that you're paying a bunch of money to as well. He's going to have to perform at a high level to go with Visser and the kid from Alabama who they bought into as a big. You know, these are all things I've been giving Carolina credit. Now, of course, I spent the whole year defending Hubert. Not the roster construction for this season, though. But to your point, when you make mistakes, they can be the reason you're fired, or you can learn from them and you can build on them. I think their roster construction has been good. That's one portion of this. The other portion of this is Hubert straight up has not played the game. And it sounds like we're being trivial by saying not playing the game. You can play favorites.
Yes.
Okay.
He doesn't even have
Like,
those. That's my thing.
That could be Greg Barnes. That could be Inside Carolina. That could be Andrew Jones.
Doesn't exist.
Like, you could play some favorites.
Doesn't exist.
So that the conversation, you're at least having the conversation molded. And at least you have somebody advocating for you.
And to be clear,
And I don't see
real
any
quick,
of that anywhere, really.
to be clear, it's not for lack of trying. When
On the media end, you're
on the
saying.
media end to
I agree
try
with
to
that.
help Hubert Davis
I agree with
frame
that.
what he's getting at. I mean, we saw it this year where he was on the coach's show and he talked about,
And he got mad.
and he got mad when somebody asked him about it the next day. I'm like, you're just talking about it. It's on your coach's show. We're trying to help you out. And no. I don't want to talk about it because it gets misconstrued. Well, right. That's what we're here for. But you don't want to play that game. That's on Hubert. And one of these days, I'd love to know why. What happened? I want to know what happened to the Hubert of ESPN to the Hubert we see today. And when it comes to that sort of personality, I'd love to know what happened. His version. I have my theories.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know from him why.
I have talked to Kevin Keats about the similar position that he was in and that Hubert are in, and how they're judged as black coaches. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's where my theories
There's
go.
an element of that.
There's where my theories go. That's going to wrap it up for the free portion of the OG mailbag. By all means, pay for the rest of it. You get Nintendo Switch 2 takes. You get my quest for Mario Kart World. You get baseball takes. You get how do I complete the fat trick of corporate champions, if you will.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. We got all sorts of questions like that. And I guess one coach can make the Eastern Conference Finals and be set for life. And one guy can make the Western Conference Finals and get his ass fired. That's on the other side of the mailbag.